My name is Ken Foreman. I will call the June meeting of the Falmouth Zoning Board of Appeals to order. Happy summer, everybody. Let me begin by asking you all to silence your cell phones. And I always say that, and someone's cell phone always goes off, so we'll see if this can be the meeting where that's an exception. Also start by introducing the board. So to your left, Jerry Potamus, who's an associate member of the board, T.J. Hurry, who's a vice chair of the board, Ed Van Kuren, who's a voting member of the board and will be the acting clerk tonight, Paul Murphy, voting member of the board, and Robert Dugan, who's an associate member of the board. Also here is Sari Boudreau, who I'm sure most of you know, our zoning administrator, and Megan Petiti, who's going to be our recording secretary tonight. As I'm sure many of you know, we're charged with applying the zoning bylaws for the town, which have been voted by town meeting and approved by the Attorney General's office, and also considering requests in the context of those bylaws for special permits, for variances, and appeals. Our goal is to hear testimony from the applicants and the public and allow full and fair discussion of each project prior to rendering a decision. So to begin each project or application, we'll ask the clerk to read a public announcement of the hearing and to present any pertinent information from the file, such as a summary of correspondence or referrals from town departments. And then the applicant or their representative will have 15 minutes to present the project. That can be extended by vote of the board, but I don't expect tonight that will be an issue. And then the board will question the applicant, and finally we will invite the public to comment. So if you wish to comment either in opposition or in favor, or just ask a question about one of these applications, please wait to be recognized by me, the chair, and then go to the podium and state your name for the record. Use the microphone so that your voice will go out over the airways to the public through television. Public comment obviously should be directed only at the project. We want to refrain from making any personal or derogatory statements. We're the ones making the decisions, so direct your comments to us, not the applicant. If the board feels that we have enough information, we will then close the hearing. We may have some further discussion and make a motion either in favor or for denial. For special permits, a 4-to-1 majority is required. So tonight we have one continuation and 3 new hearings. So we'll begin with Lawrence Lynch, 0 Blacksmith Shop Road, which is an appeal of the building commissioner, and that's a continuation. I don't know if there's anything new.
Yes, the opinion from the attorneys, which Attorney Kirk will speak to. Do you want to grab the file so the board can have it on the table?
Yeah. All right. Go ahead, Ed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, good evening. My name is Edward Kirk. I represent the applicant, Lawrence Lynch Corporation. We were here the last time and discussed the project and the application and the issues, and the board at that time asked, they intended to ask for and did ask for an opinion from Mr. Duffy, the town council, to weigh in on this issue, which he did. And I also submitted a response to that memorandum from Town Council. The memorandum of Town Council essentially repeats what was in the letter from the building commissioner. That's the letter which we're appealing. And Mr. Duffy's opinion essentially is that the building commissioner was within his rights to issue a letter which would, in effect, deny our request to construct the ground-mounted solar array at the Lawrence Lynch site. You may recall the site is about 65 acres. It's been scoured out by excavation over a period of several decades, and the solar array in question would use about 35 acres. It would all be below grade, not visible from the road. Obviously, it doesn't create noise, doesn't create dust, and we think it's the ideal site for a ground-mounted solar array, which, if it was up and running, would probably generate between $150,000 and $200,000 in revenue, personal property taxes, to the town of Falmouth. But the application or the issue is really not necessarily on the plan itself. We're really facing a legal issue. And our position is that General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 3, that contains all the exemptions and limitations on the town's ability to regulate and zone and prohibit certain kinds of uses, is in play here. And I submit to you the statute is very clear. The language which says no zoning bylaw shall prohibit or regulate. And then they go on to describe the particular use which is at issue here, ground-mounted solar array, which is, in the statute, it refers to a system which is designed to collect solar energy and for either use on-site or can then be sold wholesale on the electricity market, the so-called grid. And that's what would be taking place here. The building commissioner and Mr. Duffy, I think their opinion seems to be that because the bylaw seems to specifically allow this use in a district which is entitled light industrial district, a light industrial district, that therefore it doesn't violate the statute which says you may not prohibit. So according to their reading, you can prohibit everywhere in town except for this one location. And in so doing, you're not violating the bylaw, or you're not violating the statute that says you shall not prohibit, period. And I don't think that's a proper interpretation of the statute. The statute does not say you can prohibit where you want and you can allow where you want. It's a flat limitation on the town's ability to prohibit this use. It just doesn't really make sense to say you can do it only in this particular area but nowhere else. I might also point out that the so-called light industrial C district, in fact, doesn't really exist. There's never been a district which has been set up in various places in the town as a light industrial district. The only light industrial district, light industrial C district, is at the dump, where the town itself has a ground-mounted solar array. And that came about as a result of a zoning change. It used to be public use, and then they went out and rezoned it to light industrial C so as to comply with the particular provision of the bylaw. Some would say, well, that's spot zoning, but that's not the issue before you here today either. So the business of a light industrial C district is really sort of a myth, because there's only one in town, and it's at the dump by a special vote of town meeting. Recently, there was a photograph in the Enterprise. There was an article in a discussion about moratoriums on these kinds of projects, and there was a photograph of the ground-mounted solar array at Kenyon's, and that was approved by the building commissioner. If it would be all right with the chair if I just presented that.
Sure.
And that photograph captures clearly two different kinds of solar arrays. There's the so-called roof. There's a series of panels on the roof, which would qualify as even though it's not a separate category, a roof-mounted solar array. The rest are clearly ground-mounted solar arrays, and they extend throughout quite a bit of the property. So you can see, pick up at least 3 of them. And that's really what we're talking about here. And the building commissioner had no problem issuing a building permit for those structures. And he believes that he was in compliance with the bylaw, and I believe Mr. Duffy does too. I submit it's inconsistent for the building commissioner and the town council to say that this ground-mounted solar array in a district other than light industrial C is lawful, and yet a ground-mounted solar array in the agricultural district where we propose to put it would not be lawful. I can also tell you, the town of Barnstable, their zoning bylaw also came up in discussion with the planning board. And the action, or the response of the town of Barnstable basically supports our position. They've created an overlay district that allows ground-mounted solar arrays to take place throughout the town, without exception. But they do have a provision which complies with the statutory requirement of reasonable regulation, which is to say they've got to go before the planning board for site plan review. And that is the only limitation. But the town of Barnstable seems to recognize that the statute does not allow a town to prohibit these solar arrays in any district. So we've tried to cover the ins and outs of the statute in my memorandum in response to Frank Duffy's his memorandum, so I won't try to lead you through all the ins and outs of that. You can peruse that at your leisure. But the bottom line is, what does the statute say? No bylaw shall prohibit. And the interpretation which we've been getting from the building commissioner is that the town can prohibit our particular project. So what we're asking is the board to come to a different conclusion than that which the building commissioner has arrived at, and would like a decision that says that the statute means what it says, and we would be entitled to a permit to construct this solar array.
Okay. Let's see if the board has any follow-up questions. Yep.
Clarifying question. In this case, are you saying the board should follow the statute in the absence of clear or vague or contradictory language in our bylaw? Let's say our bylaw violated the statute. Is this board obligated to follow the bylaw or the statute?
I think you're obligated to, if you agree with me that the town may not prohibit these structures, that you have to follow that directive, even if the bylaw seems to suggest that the town can do that.
Then if the board overrode the building commissioner's decision, the next step would for you to come before us with a special permit?
No special permit would be necessary. We would then go to the building commissioner, submit the plans showing the structures, and ask for the permit.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have a question, a couple questions, actually. So one point that Attorney Duffy makes is that provisions of Chapter 40A3, CS3, Section 3, refer to government or educational nonprofits, churches. not private enterprise. Can you,
That's a separate exemption. That's having to do with religious and educational purposes.
so, is the portion of this, of the statute that you're talking about silent on the issue of who it applies to?
That's right. It, obviously, it doesn't, it's not limited to churches or schools or whatever. It's the bylaw, no bylaw shall prohibit, regardless of who the landowner is or the collector of solar energy.
Now, and the second question I had regarded the example at Kenyon's that you showed, and what was the building commissioner's argument? How is that distinctive or different from what you're proposing? For example, well, two things occur to me. It's accessory, it's not primary. The primary use is as a retail business. And secondly, it is serving as a roof over the parking area.
The bylaw doesn't talk about, I'm sorry, the statute doesn't talk about accessory uses.
No, but our bylaws do.
Right, but he also says that these are permitted as an accessory, what Frank seems to suggest, these are permitted as an accessory use under the bylaw. Well, you have to define what's an accessory use. I mean, is this customary and incidental? I don't think so.
So if it were that he construed those to be accessory, that would be a justification
It's
for why those would be allowed and your, your proposal might not be.
There's nothing in the bylaw that says a ground-mounted solar array is a permitted accessory use. And it's not a use in connection with the operation of the store. It's not something else that they're selling.
Mm-hmm.
It's apparently being used perhaps to provide electricity on site. It's sort of a standalone kind of activity, but it's not a use per se.
Okay.
It's an activity, there are structures, but it seems to me it's inconsistent to allow these structures on the one hand under a definition that isn't in the statute to call it an accessory use, therefore it's okay. The statute says you can't prohibit it no matter what, whether it's an accessory use or a principal use, if it's a use.
Okay. Well, I don't think there's any more board questions, are there? Any comments from the public on this one? All right, shall we have some discussion? As you've all had a chance to look at the Duffy memo.
Yes. Haven't seen Mr. Kirk's memo.
It's in the file.
And it was sent to you via email.
And
I'm not a voting member, so I probably
Right,
didn't get it.
right.
I usually send it to everybody when
I didn't get it.
Okay.
But it was in the,
Okay.
it was in the file, because
Well, that's fair.
I have a copy. So there's two letters from Attorney Kirk. One is the original letter, and then he's got a follow-up, which rebuts,
One is in, the recent one is
The
in
Duffy.
response to Frank Duffy.
which he basically summarized in his presentation.
Right.
So, I don't know, should we just see how people are feeling?
Yeah, I think the town attorney's opinion was correct. I think the building commissioner was correct. These are, I mean, the hockey rink has one of these too.
Right.
One of these as well. And it's really, it's a little different than a traditional ground-mounted solar array. This provides shade. It's a roof over the parking area. I think it's materially different. And you can, there are certain zoning districts where you can zone these large-scale ground-mounted solar arrays. They're not, I mean, if your bylaw wants to provide for allowing these in all zoning districts, I suppose it can. Ours doesn't, and that's perfectly fine. And I completely agree with Attorney Duffy's opinion, but this is not the same thing as what Lawrence Lynch is proposing. This is accessory to Kenyon's.
So that's the main difference in your
I
view?
think so. And I don't consider it a ground-mounted solar array, as I don't consider the one at the rink. I
Okay.
consider it a roofed parking area.
I agree the same thing with the Kenyons. I think it's accessory. It's using the energy for the building area, but it does say in the statute, or unreasonably regulate, and I think that the town has tried to reasonably regulate,
Yeah.
putting it in a specific area with the light industrial. If the town decides to change their mind and change it and allow it in other zoning districts, they could always do that through town meeting, but that's something that could be proposed.
I think that they should change it, the town meeting should change it and make that area out there, the 65 acres or whatever it is, make that light industrial. zone.
Right, well, that
That's what we
that
thought
may
was
be
gonna
a
happen.
fine proposal, and
Right.
that did come, but that's, we're only faced with the question
Right.
of, do we uphold or not the building commissioner's decision? And
I think we
so-
need to uphold the building
Okay,
commissioner
there you
and
go.
Frank Duffy, but at the same time, we need to pursue.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the concept.
No.
No, it's a good project.
TJ?
My opinion hasn't changed on this. I think we should uphold the building commissioner, and I appreciate Frank Duffy weighing in on the matter.
Yeah.
And just to note that it's not an absolute exemption. I think the right route for the applicant to go is to maybe pursue a zoning change on that property. I mean, town meeting deemed that LIC was appropriate for ground-mounted solar arrays.
Mhm.
Maybe they should propose an overlay district like Barnstable and go through town meeting. I think it's important to remember that light industrial C, it was approved through town meeting and it was upheld by the Attorney General.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you all. I mean, I would, especially with regard to the Kenyons and the hockey rink, they could have put up a roof over the parking
Sure.
without any solar. So the solar is, something that they added, but the structure exists independent of the solar. All right, so I guess if that's how we feel, we perhaps should have a motion. And, let's see, do we need to, we need to close this? Is this a? Yeah.
You should close it.
Yes.
Most
so
definitely.
Let's have a motion to close.
Make a motion to close.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And then a motion either to uphold the building commissioner or not.
Need to designate voting members?
The voting members are already designated.
Okay.
I'd like
And
to make,
if you want, I'll summarize
No.
myself, TJ, Ed Van Kuren, Paul Murphy, and Robert.
I'd like to make a motion to uphold the decision of the building inspector related to this matter.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
there you have it.
Thank you, Ed.
Okay, so now we begin with new hearings. And the first is, and I'll probably butcher the name, Decoto, application 036-18, 507 Central Avenue, which is a special permit to construct an addition above a garage over an existing deck. Ed, you're gonna,
Being all persons deemed affected by the Board of Appeals under Section 11, Chapter 40A of the Massachusetts General Laws, you're hereby notified that Jay and Lynn Decoto, trustees, Groton, Massachusetts, applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to Sections 243C of the Code of Falmouth to construct an addition over existing deck above garage, increasing habitable space within a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling on the subject property known as 507 Central Ave, East Falmouth, Mass.
Excuse me, Chairman.
yes, I'm gonna make a comment about
Oh,
that.
okay.
I just was gonna let him
Thank
finish.
you.
Keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
Engineering, the standard comments. Water, no comment. Assessors, no comment. Fire department, no comment, no comment. in the health department. It appears to be existing 5-bedroom home that will remain 5 bedrooms, no health issues. That's it.
Okay, so Mr. Murphy stepped out, and he's normally a full voting member, so we're going to need a substitute, and I'll designate Jerry for that.
Don't think
Not
you-
Mr. Patamas?
Mr. Patamas.
Okay.
Colonel Patamas. Is that correct? Did I get you right?
It's just Mr. Patamas, not Patamas.
Okay.
If we have them, yes.
He knows I'm on it too.
You're fine. So all 5 members of the board will be voting members.
And here for the applicant is Attorney Clower.
Good evening, Chairman Foreman. For the record, my name is Kevin Clower. I'm an attorney with Ahmet Clower Law Firm here in Falmouth, and I represent the applicants, Jay and Leah Dakota, trustees of Minot 3 Realty Trust. They are the owners of 507 Central Avenue in East Falmouth and are the applicants in this matter. 507 Central Avenue is located in East Falmouth, directly across essentially from Minot Beach. It's bordered by Minot Road on the south and Central Avenue on the east. It's a highly visible property that I think many of you probably recognized. Has lovely picturesque views as you approach it from either direction. It's on a lot of 22,500 square feet, give or take, and it's located in the Residential B zoning district. The present dwelling is a 2.5-story home with 5 bedrooms, and it's a single-family dwelling. The existing structure has a footprint of just over 2,700 square feet. It's 2,729 square feet for lot coverage by structures of 12.1%. There's 5 bedrooms as it exists, and the existing ridge height is 28 feet. It is non-conforming, and it's non-conforming to the setback from the 3-foot contour, being 15.9 feet, where 50 is required by the bylaw. The applicants are seeking permission for a relatively minor addition. Specifically, they're seeking alterations to the second floor and looking to create a new master suite. This will involve the elimination of one of the existing bedrooms in order to keep the bedroom count the same. They're going to utilize existing developed space, being the second floor deck, and this will result in the addition of only 81 square feet footprint of the structure. There is no effect on existing nonconformities. However, due to the existing nonconformity, this does require a special permit under the provisions of the zoning bylaw, specifically Section 240-3C. That section states that pre-existing nonconforming structures may be altered by special permit of this board, provided they're not substantially more detrimental than what currently exists. The board is asked to consider the standards of 240-216 and whether or not the alteration creates any new dimensional nonconformities, impairs views of vistas from public ways, and reasonably conforms to the dimensions in the neighborhood. In this case, the proposed renovations have no effect on the existing nonconformity. The cantilevered portion of the addition will be further away from the 3-foot contour setback than presently exists. That'll be 16.3 feet, whereas the existing northwest corner of the garage is only 15.9 feet. The lot coverage will remain conforming at 12.4%, well below the 20% that's allowed by right. And the proposed ridge height of the addition area is 25 feet 9 inches, which is lower than the existing ridge height of 28 feet. This property is not located in a historic district or on the inventory of historically significant structures. The proposed project has no detriments relative to the existing structure. It has no adverse effects, and certainly none more substantially more detrimental than what currently exists. There's no new nonconformities, no impacts on views of vistas, and it's in line with the other homes in the area. In addition, it meets the standards of 240-216. Based on this information, I'd ask that you grant this request for a special permit, and I'd be glad to address any questions the board may have at this time.
All right, let's see if there are any questions. Robert?
So Kevin, you'll just be modifying that 1 bedroom with a 4-foot opening?
Yeah, put a cased opening on that existing bedroom, make it an office
existing one.
space.
And then was there any need at all for anything with conservation where it's so close to the water? I
I
noticed
think
there
was
wasn't.
an RDA filed, I believe.
Okay, because there was no, we didn't get a referral, that's what I
Yeah.
was wondering.
No, I believe there's an RDA filed, but it's all happening, even the cantilevered portion's happening over existing impervious surface. There's a cement area below that. So there's no change to the impervious surface of the structure.
That's all I have.
I don't have any questions.
TJ, anything?
Just going off of what Bob said, it's very unusual that we don't even get a referral from Concom regarding a project like this. Would you mind handing in a copy of the RDA?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you. And going off of engineering regarding the runoff, I see one dry well proposed on the property. Oh, I'm sorry, there might be two. Would two be adequate?
I went to law school because I was told there'd be no math. I typically defer to the engineers in that case, and would be happy to agree to the standard condition wherein we would allow for dry wells per the recommendation of the engineer to contain runoff.
I deal with the same problem, especially with my new job, Kevin. Thank you.
Jerry?
No comments.
And I don't have any questions either.
The engineering department, I believe, weighed in on the dry wells,
Okay,
did they
let's-
not?
Let's check that.
It's usually the last sentence.
It just says the project must not direct any stormwater to public property, abutters, or rights of way. Thank you for including roof dry wells in the design.
So they acknowledged, so
Mhm.
they would have commented if they thought there wasn't enough.
I thought it was an
I had
Yeah.
misread the map, only seeing one. I didn't realize there were two.
Okay, so I think the board's satisfied. Let's just see if there's any comments or questions in the public. Anybody interested in this project out there? Okay, if not, I think this is a fairly straightforward application. Someone want to move to close?
I'll make the motion to close.
I'll second.
Okay, Ed and Robert, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and someone want to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, TJ is the seconder again. So Jerry, any findings?
If I can paraphrase the attorney, it's consistent with 240-3, it's not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, and it meets the conditions of 240, 216. Don't necessarily want to enumerate all of them, but I think probably they are adequate sewage disposal, siting vistas, and so on and so forth.
And I guess they did, according to testimony, file with Conscom for a determination of applicability, and,
And they also modified that bedroom so that it'll increase the bedroom count.
okay, so that's a better, number of bedrooms remains the same, that's another good finding. No increase in any existing non-conformities. And minimal increase in lot coverage.
But it's still below
Still below.
the maximum allowed by right.
Right.
And a decrease in the roof height.
It's not a decrease, that's just that the addition's less.
Right. So, then, I guess as a condition, we would just make it as per the plan.
Plans.
Submission of the RDA, is it?
Submission of the RDA.
Whatever was sent to Concom, we'll get you a copy.
Okay,
Our bedroom count remain.
Remain at 5 beds?
Yeah.
so 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's 4.
That's
That
fine.
was five. Well, how many beds?
It's 5, remaining at 5.
Applications.
Hearing's closed. It's going to remain a 5-bedroom dwelling.
Okay. I'm amazed there one on the first floor in this. Okay, everyone happy with that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Or not?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Not in Wall Street.
Okay, so our next, don't steal my pen.
Was that yours?
Next application is HSP Prime LLC for 272 Mara Vista Avenue in T-Ticket. It's application number 037-18, a special permit to construct an addition. on a lot coverage exceeding 20%.
Being all persons deemed affected by the Board of Appeals under Section 11 of Chapter 48 of the Massachusetts General Laws, you are hereby notified that HSP Prime LLC of Annapolis, Maryland, applicant to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to Sections 243C and 24069E of the Code of Falmouth, be constructed in addition, creating habitable space in the pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling exceeding 20% lot coverage by structures on subject property known as 272 Mara Vista Avenue, T-Ticket, Mass. Engineering, standard comments, water runoff, adding dry wells, rain gutters, other stormwater measurements. Sewer department on sewer. All the rest, no comments.
Okay, is there anything to hand out in the file? Okay, is Paul gone for good?
Yes, he is.
Yep.
Okay. So I guess that means, Jerry, you're on again.
Mhm.
Mr. Bunker?
Good evening. Record, my name is Tom Bunker with VSS Design. I guess first thing I'd like to say is happy first day of summer. Whoever here and not out there. I'll be out there before you are. I'm representing Lynn Harding, HSP Prime LLC. This application for 272 Mira Vista Ave. There's a house on there now, which is non-conforming in several respects, setback from the Mira Vista Ave setback. There's only 14.7 feet to the front steps and 19.8 feet to the house. This location does not conform to the 25-foot front yard setback, and nor does on Narragansett 24.4 feet and 18.3 feet to the bulkhead. Is also non-conforming to the south lot line at only 4.8 feet from the property line. I have a plan. As I was going over this, I found that we had made a mistake on the existing lot coverage. I have a plan I can give to Sari.
Actually, give it maybe to the clerk.
Thanks, Tom.
So as I was going over it, I was coloring in this deck that's going to be removed, and it seemed to me that this proposed addition is not a whole lot bigger than the deck that's being removed, which is true. That coverage, I have, the existing coverage is 1,563, is actually the house is non-conforming now as far as coverage, that's 21.7%. So in addition to setback non-conformities, there is an existing lot coverage non-conformity.
So it's not 16.66.
It is not. And 1,200, I'm not sure where the 1,200 square feet of footprint area came from, but including that deck, it's 1,563 square feet, which is 21.7. And the proposed going up to 21.9, so it doesn't change the fact that we're increasing lot coverage. And the proposed coverage is correct on this. The building height is only 15 feet high, and that obviously conforms to building height limitations in Falmouth. Want to add a one-story addition in this location here, setback from Narragansett Street. hidden from view from Mara Vista Ave. The parallel 24 feet by 16 feet. Basically, that will house the great room. There are in the floor plan was now a two-bedroom house with a living room and a kitchen, become 3 bedrooms across. In Mara Vista, they're allowed 4 bedrooms, so it's under that limit. And then this, where there had been a small den or living room down there, will become the great room out in the back of the house in that location. The chart here compared the lot coverages in the neighborhood. This chart, there are 2 in your package, and one is based solely, 2 columns here, and one is based strictly on lot coverage, or percent lot coverage, and that's this first percentage here. But this chart is reordered according to the lot, the footprint area, but also the habitable, it's based on the finished area of the house, plus decks and sheds and things. So when you add in, that factors in if it's a 1.5 or 2-story house. So based on the finished area, the percentage of lot coverage, basically like a floor area ratio, we're from the houses in the neighborhood, we're way down in the bottom half of coverage in here. And it is, as I said, just a 1-story addition with 1-story house, 1-story addition. The addition will be 1 foot lower than the existing house. The addition will be only 14 feet high. And it'll be only 3 bedrooms total. A photo of the house with the house, the addition superimposed on it. And so there's one thing you can see, the house directly behind on the next lot south of there, because this addition is only 14 feet high. Actually, still from Narragansett Street, you can still be able to see the house behind there. So it shows what a low addition and a non-imposing addition this is, particularly because it's set so far back from Narragansett that its size is diminished because it's back there. So I was saying this will have 3 bedrooms total, which is less than allowed in the Mara Vista sewer area. It's a low 1-story house with the addition set back from the street. There'll be no impact on traffic or utilities. It's still a single-family house, basically the same size. No change noticeable from Mara Vista Ave, except that there's a small sort of decorative dormer roof over the front door to keep the rain from falling on the stoop. There'll be no impact to views or vistas from public ways, no shadows on abutting properties, because the sun is in the south here, so any shadows kind of occur on their own property. And this house, with this addition, I think will be in the, certainly in keeping with the character of the Mara Vista neighborhood, as modest 1-story houses, and have no harmful impacts on the neighborhood or utilities or anything.
Okay.
That's it.
Let's just see if, Jerry, do you have any questions?
No, I think so.
TJ, anything?
Let's see. The engineering recommendation, I think they mentioned dry wells, are they proposed? Or at least, at least regarding runoff? Would dry wells be required, in your opinion?
No, we can certainly,
It says recommend adding dry wells, rain garden, or other stormwater measures.
we can certainly add them.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Ed?
No, I have nothing.
Robert?
No, just the basement's basically just for storage, basement area in the house.
Yes.
And there's the addition, you should know from looking at the plan, is that on a full basement as well?
I believe so. Yes. Yes. Yep, full basement storage.
Okay. I think the board's probably asked all the questions they have. Let's see if anyone in the public wants to talk on this one. Sure. Come to the podium, please.
Good evening, Cheryl Williams. I'm not in opposition to this project. I am a 300-foot abutter. My concern is the fact, and I believe on the plan, let me see if I can see this. The new plan, you're adding another little driveway?
No.
No. Then that is a major concern because this is a Verbo property, and in the past, last summer, there was not adequate parking for the number of people that were staying at that house on various times throughout the summer. Hence, when you're coming down Narragansett Street, your line of sight trying to pull out into Mara Vista is very, very difficult to see because there isn't adequate parking. So with an addition, as I said, I'm not opposed to the addition, but I am very, very concerned about the lack of adequate parking.
Okay, let's see if Mr. Bunker can address that.
There is, there's a paved drive, there's a lot of lawn area. I don't know where people park currently. I mean, they shouldn't park in the street,
Right.
obviously.
How many spaces are there on the paved drive?
There's just one space of paved drive,
And how many bedrooms?
three bedrooms.
Do you want to bring back that photo of the house, because it shows the
Yeah.
driveway?
Is that width one space or depth?
There's more, I mean, that's the driveway there.
Right.
Can you put two cars in there back to back? Bullet parking?
Barely, I mean, certainly they could extend it, and there's all this lawn area.
Yeah, the way the plan shows it, it doesn't reach all the way to the proposed addition.
No, it doesn't, and this is stepping stones.
And the testimony is that it's space for one car.
This, what we added, just to show.
So what about either widening it or lengthening it?
I'm sure they'd be,
It's-
with whatever would be required, it certainly can have,
So you show on the plan one parking space for lot coverage calculation.
right, and that's
But that's
a
an
9 by 18 space, and we show that because every house every house lot should have 2 parking spaces. So
Right.
there's, for the paving, parking, and structures, paving and parking lot coverage number, we show this is a paved area, and then we add another 9 by 18
But currently,
square
that's
feet.
not paved.
That's not an actual space. It's lawn, as you can see, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's lawn here.
But it doesn't have to be paved to be parked on.
Right, I mean,
So long as they're not parking on the street.
if there's a
they can
condition
park.
that they can't park on the street, I mean, there's plenty of lawn. It's not like they'd have to cut down trees or anything else, and they could, harden an area
Right.
with gravel, or just say they.
Right, but, you are asking for a permit. Apparently, it's been a problem, so I'm just wondering if
Mhm.
we couldn't modify the plan to make it a little more clear where people should park.
Mhm.
Then that
But
can be-
certainly do, I mean, houses, what kind of house was it that you said it was?
Oh,
It had some adjective.
I think it's because it's a rental property. There was a sign out front, a
Yeah.
virtual rental, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean, where it's a rental
Right, in
property.
other words, if it was just a family, it could be, well, even so, parents, 2 cars,
But rental properties, I think, in my experience, have a tendency to
attract.
overflow.
Yes, they do.
Mhm.
They do.
So I don't know what you might require. We can certainly designate or
Well, I guess my feeling is, I don't know what the board's feeling would be, that we would require some additional paving to accommodate at least 2 cars on pavement. And then,
Would we want paving or gravel or
Paving
something
or-
else?
that could
It's
be,
up to them. Let
You
them
could do either or, but
decide.
Yeah,
just
I
so
mean,
that it's designated.
but
so
it,
it's-
but I think it needs to be something other than lawn.
Right, designate, they can designate it and tell what the materials will be.
yeah,
Crushed stone?
right. I'm sure that would be.
Okay.
So the board can condition that.
Yep. All right, any other comment in the public? Okay.
Good evening, I'm Frank Laguadara, 282 Maravista Avenue. I'm hoping that my concerns aren't perhaps relevant to the board, but I want to explain them anyway. If this was a homeowner that was expanding their home due to their growing family, I wouldn't have a concern, and I wouldn't be here. But this is an LLC that's making a residential property another commercial property. And that's my concern. I've been around long enough to remember the wild west of Maravista Avenue in the rental season. It was something that my dad was quite concerned about, particularly the racing up and down Maravista Avenue. In fact, when he built the house in '61, he built the foundation high and removed very few trees with the hope that the car careening off of Maravista Avenue would not make it through the trees and if they did, would hit the foundation and not take out a section of the home. I agree with Cheryl that parking has been a problem at this residence. In fact, there are many occasions where there were quite a few cars on the lawn. I was hoping that the owner, Lynn, was here tonight, that she could maybe alleviate some of my concerns about the addition. They're showing it as a great room, but I'm in my heart thinking, how many more people are they going to stuff into this home as a rental property? You can say it's 3 bedrooms or whatever, but now they're putting in this great room with undoubtedly have couches that fold out into beds and such. And I don't know if we can even go there. My other concern is that being an LLC, they're renting this property online through ineedavacation.com. It's not, and I don't know how much screening goes on for the tenants, or whether the owner, Lynn, is involved in that process. In the past, we had real estate agents that, because they lived in the neighborhood, would screen a prospective tenant. And I don't know if any of these concerns are relevant to the board, but they're relevant to me as a neighbor. The red flag is the fact that they're not doing it as homeowners, they're doing it as an LLC, which means they have limited liability. So no matter what goes on at that home, doesn't it mean that they can't be sued, that there's not going to be legal consequences for any activities that go on in that home? Am I incorrect? I don't know.
Well, I guess I'd say it's
It's not our
not
purview.
pertinent to ours. I mean, lots of people own properties in other entities for various reasons. And the nature of ownership is not relevant. The use as a residence is what's relevant. And, they're
Well,
within their
it's
rights,
really-
they're within their rights to rent it.
Yeah.
So, I think the concerns about whether there's adequate parking, that's pertinent to the board.
When some of my neighbors that couldn't be here tonight, who came down and got a copy of the plans that were proposed as changes, they were told that the great room would go on the existing footprint of the existing deck, and then after the addition was done, then they would build a new deck forward of that towards the driveway. Now, I don't know if
Through the board, through the board.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not
Address the
before
board.
this
We're the ones making the decision.
Okay.
We can get an answer for you on that, whether there's any plans to further expand the deck after construction of this. That would require coming back to us, because it would be, they're already, you know, in special permit land. And
If you were to look at the property now, that south existing wall is, I think it's approximately 4 feet from the border, from the lot line. So my concern is that this is going to retract now, so it's not going to be 4 feet away. It's showing perhaps-
The setbacks will not change.
Okay.
Well, actually, I think there was
They
a
do
slight
that.
improvement in one.
Right, there is, but I'm saying what, they won't change from what's on the plan.
No.
Right.
Okay, so I think we hear your concern.
Okay, thank you.
You know, some of those concerns are relevant in terms of providing adequate parking.
The owner I only know as Lynn. I've never met the woman. Neighbors tell me she's a very nice lady. She does live in the greater Mara Vista area, but I would have felt much better to perhaps
Well-
meet her and have her assurances that she's going to screen who these
You're-
tenants are going to be.
I'm sure you're free to, you know,
Contact.
try to contact her directly. That's not the role of the zoning board, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see if that does it for public comment. Does that do it for public comment? Okay,
I can just answer.
Sure.
I don't know of any plan to put a deck on.
Mhm.
You know, the plans that we were given is all that I know of, is that front little porch thing on that side. I know of nothing else.
okay. Has the board heard enough information at this point? Okay. Anyone want to make a motion to close?
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Little discussion before we have a motion. Are we,
Well, I guess the parking would be just the main concern, because even though it is 3, they could by right do 4. They're on a town sewer system, so,
They'd have to come back in front of us.
well, widening the driveway or,
It's not before the board. I think the board can make a condition to have a plan resubmitted showing whatever how many parking spaces you
suitable
determine.
parking for
At least 3 minimum.
3?
Probably.
Yeah.
Most likely.
I think
because-
that makes sense.
That's reasonable.
Suitable parking.
There's plenty of space.
Yep. Okay, in a clearly designated either gravel surface or paved surface, yeah.
Well,
Okay.
you can just condition that the plan show what type of material within the parking.
But I think we would like it not to just be,
You want it pervious?
no, I'm happy to have it pervious. I don't want it to be lawn. I think it needs to be
So it could be grass.
very clear
graded.
that people,
Material other than lawn, but
Right.
perhaps pervious, do you want that?
that's fine.
Porous
Clearly
pavement.
delineated parking. All right, anyway, someone needs to make the main motion here to approve this.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. And so we want to have some findings.
So it meets 240-69F, is it? Doesn't, it will not exceed 25%, or we could,
69E.
E.
It's already over, so it'd be under 240-3C. As he
Right.
explained, the
Right,
existing
because
is
the
already over.
his original calculations of lot coverage were incorrect.
So it's consistent with whatever it's consistent with.
So
I mean, it's
the,
consistent with the number of our
you know, the lot coverage is increasing minimally from, because of the removal of the deck, from 21.7 to 21.97, is it?
Yeah,
Uh,
1.21.9, isn't it?
21.7 to 21.97, I
Yeah.
think, to the second decimal place.
97.
Which is a modest increase.
It's a modest increase. I think another finding is there were concerns from the abutters about adequacy of parking on the site. And it was noted there's been parking in the street. there's no increase in the height, right? No increase in the bedroom count?
Yes, there is two
Two
bedrooms
to
to
three
three.
beds.
Two,
Three.
Two bedrooms to three
two
bedrooms.
bedrooms to
But
three
they're on
bedrooms.
town
Oh, right,
sewer.
because there's one
But they're on town sewer.
Until-
on
Sewer.
town sewer. Okay, sorry.
Setback nonconformities are remaining, but I think there's one
I
that's
think there's
slightly,
actually an
Can you
improvement.
there's one improving, right?
I can't hear you.
I
I'm
think-
sorry.
I think the front yard setback.
The
on-
non-conforming setbacks, they're
on-
remaining except for one, I believe?
No,
No?
they're the same. The proposed addition is in compliance.
Right.
10.4. Setbacks, non-conforming setbacks are not changing.
They're remaining, okay.
So they're not changing this stoop on Mira Vista side?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Are you? Oh, they are.
They're just adding the
Excuse me.
roof.
Yeah, I
line.
thought that was improving.
They're improving it, but
Yeah.
it's not changing.
No.
It's an improvement, but it's not changing the setback, 14.7 to
Okay.
14.7.
All right.
I had a question. Why is 24069E not applicable?
Because it's already pre-existing non-conforming at 21.7, I think it is, whatever it is.
Oh, okay, all right. I missed that. That's what you did say before.
Yeah.
But he went ahead and did the lot coverage calculations for you.
So I guess that's worth noting in the findings is that the
Updated.
updated lot coverage.
And it falls within the middle of the range, which is kind of nice. so.
Right, well, the other thing that that achieves is that the ranking relative to other properties changes very little.
Right. There's conformity with the neighborhood.
Right. Okay, so it's consistent with homes in the neighborhood, Sari.
I got that.
And then,
Engineering recommended dry wells. We
Yeah.
can back that up with a condition.
okay, so I think then we're at conditions.
The finding was that he's probably amenable to two dry wells, I believe is what he said,
Right?
at the addition. That's what I put.
Okay, so then, Jerry, for conditions, I think we need to,
The bedrooms, I mean, the parking,
Parking.
increased parking up to 3 of pervious or non-pervious materials, but not grass.
Send us a drawing.
And Suri can accept that, right?
Revised site plan prior to the issuance of a building permit.
I like that. You read my mind?
Sure I did.
And dry wells as deemed appropriate by the applicant's engineer?
Right.
I'm sorry?
Dry wells as deemed appropriate by the applicant's engineer?
okay?
Well,
If
they're
necessary?
amenable. Do you want to add them? Or do you
Yes,
want
we were
him to
adding
make the
two.
determination?
If they're necessary.
I thought that
They're
the
ame-
engineering
they're-
was.
They're amenable to it.
Well, that's just it. Does the board,
I think we
based
should
on
add them.
engineering's referral, want them?
Two.
So then we'll change the condition that they'll be placed on site per the engineer's discretion with on the revised plan as well.
Correct.
How's that?
Yep.
Just for general comment, because we get this a lot, I'm in the Heights. People need to call the police department, the Board of Health, or whatever.
Jerry. wait,
No, I mean, it
let's-
comes up every
But let's
meeting.
finish the motion.
Oh, very
Okay.
good.
I think we have our findings and conditions.
Okay.
Bless
And
you.
was there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. We're ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Off you go. That takes us to our third hearing of the evening, which is 038-18, Patterson Trustees, 21 Montgomery Court in Falmouth, which is a special permit to construct a garage addition with deck and second-story addition over 20% lot coverage.
Being all persons being all persons deemed affected by the Board of Appeals under sections 11 of Chapter 40A of the Massachusetts General Laws, you are hereby notified that William G. and Susan B. Patterson, trustees of Littleton, Massachusetts, applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to Section 240, 3C and 240-69E Code of Falmouth to construct an attached garage with deck and a second-story addition exceeding 20% lot coverage with structure on subject property known as 21 Montgomery Court, Falmouth, Mass. Referrals. No comments from anybody, on any of them.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, good evening, members of the board. My name is Michael Duffany. I'm representing the applicant, William and Susan Patterson, this evening for an expansion of their home on 21 Montgomery Court in Falmouth Heights. Apologize that our engineer had a conflict this evening, so I'm going to do my best to present this in a way that everyone can understand. This is a phased construction project. At the moment, we're looking to put on a garage addition on the house, but knowing that this is a phased project, we are going to be coming back to you asking for some of the other pieces of this. So we thought it would be best to come tonight with everything that we would like to do in the next couple of years. And rather than, you are a busy board, so rather than come back and come back and come back. So we're going to put all our cards on the table and hopefully we'll be successful in allowing them to expand this existing it's a 4-bedroom ranch built in 1956. It's on a 7,500 square foot lot on Montgomery Court. It's the last lot on the right-hand side of the road. A lot of the homes in that neighborhood, as you know, have been expanded or just been built to, along the idea of what our client is looking to do here. So we feel that it will actually be an improvement to what's there, and it'll actually be a little bit more in keeping with everything that's been going on there the last 5 or so years, including what's work that's ongoing across the road today. We're looking to remove an existing terrace on the back of the house and replace it with a deck on what's now the driveway side of the home, which is the south side, or if the right side as you're facing it from the road. We are going to look to remove the existing front landing and stairway to the home, which the house, one of the reasons why we're here is because it's only 12 feet from the road. And that stair now is about 7.5 feet from the road. So we're going to look to remove that and to improve that's streetscape there. And we are going to be putting a deck on the rear of the proposed addition, which is, we're looking for egress through a stairway to the ground if we could. And the parking will shift to the north side of the home. You see it's existing parking and proposed parking. And it's all, right now it's all gravel, there's no pavement there. They are on the sewer, they have hooked up to the sewer. So we've met that criteria from the town as well. And eventually what we want to do is we want to put a second story on this home. So it's going to go from a ranch, from an existing ranch into more of a Cape-style home. And they use this home with their family, and they'd like to have a little bit more elbow room for them. They are the primary residents in this home, and they use it weekends, and they're there all summer, like so many others. The lot coverage we're looking to expand the lot coverage to just under the 25%, and the total lot coverage will come in just about 35%. I think that's, well, we could probably have questions, but
I'm sure we can have a few questions for you.
yes.
Let's see if we start with Robert.
So Mike, what is the phasing plans time-wise? I mean, just the garage first and then?
Yeah, the garage will be done first, and then a year from now, we'll do the
The second
addition.
floor.
This is in the A zone, prior to the new FEMA maps, this house conformed by 11 inches, and now it's underwater. So you can only do up to the 50% of the value of the home in any one construction project. So it's not something that we can do, you know, in one phase. So we have to do it in 2, possibly 3 phases. And that's, you know, in hopes that that it doesn't continue to get more difficult to do this work in the A zone.
And then the bonus room, if you eventually put it over the garage,
Yes.
that could take place of a 4th bedroom?
Yes, it could. It's going to walk and talk like a bedroom, even though it's an arts and crafts studio. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's a pretty good-sized room. It could certainly be used as a bedroom.
And you are on town sewer there anyways, right? Is that
Yes, we
town
are.
sewer connection? That is town sewer connection.
We
right?
are on town sewer, and we are limited, because of that, we are limited to the 4 bedrooms that exist in the home today.
I don't see it much on plans, and I know it's just a layout thing, it may not even be it, but there's a lot of beds depicted on the 2nd floor. Any reason for that? Is that just
I beg pardon, a lot of,
Beds.
a lot of beds in the bedrooms on the 2nd floor? Is that just idea that you could, for occupancy? I mean,
It's a bedroom.
well, I'm just
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
questioning occupancy, that's all.
it's just something in the conversation with the owners and developing the plan, you know. Perhaps
Well,
we
I
could
could put bunk beds up at dorms, I mean, plenty of people have done that. It's still a bedroom.
It's the bedrooms that we look at.
That's all I have.
Ed? Couple things. I see on the plan it says future shed, which adds 200 square feet, and if you include that in the square footage that you're showing on the plan, gets you to 27% lot coverage.
Yeah, the existing shed is not included in that, and I asked him to take it off. It was something, he put it on just to show that if you wanted a shed, this is where it could be. We honestly didn't ask for a shed.
I think it's likely that we would condition this, that there be no future shed, because it's gonna put you over 25%. You're already very close.
Right. No, I don't disagree, and if it weren't for the timing, you know, I'd already asked to have it, I withdrew without prejudice once so that we could bring the whole plan to you. And he thought he was doing us a favor when he did this, and the day that was the last day when it was supposed to be filed, I got this plan, and so I will live with what you say.
Okay. The second question I had is, there's a large bonus room shown on the 2nd floor, proposed, which just so happens to have a bathroom there. And
Yes, that's
looks
about-
like it has a separate egress.
That's correct.
Uh,
And
What's that for?
That's a great question, and the reason is because we're looking to do this 2-story garage now. And to have that bonus room up above, which, again, is an arts and crafts room, but it could be whatever you're comfortable calling it, it needs 2 means of egress. And so the thought was to have a stairway coming up through. If we were going to do it all at once, which we started to do, we were connecting it into the main house. It was just an addition to the main house. But now that it's going to be a year, you know, before we're able to do that, or a year and a half before everything is constructed, we need to show 2 means of egress.
So it counted as a bedroom?
No, it's not counted as a bedroom.
But he's asking for 4 bedrooms?
Not in this plan, it's not counted. It could be a 5th bedroom,
Oh,
basically.
fifth
Right,
bedroom
and
would be
which
It's
not
a
we-
allowed.
4-bedroom house now.
Which we've
Okay.
already established through Mike's testimony is not allowed because they're on the sewer, right? So I'm just concerned that the way it's drawn here, it's too easy to make it into a bedroom, but
And even if it doesn't have a closet, which it does, it's not depicted, it would still be counted as a bedroom.
I mean, why does it need a bathroom?
Well,
It
it's-
would still be a bedroom
still be
without a
bedroom, yeah.
bathroom.
I know, I'm just curious as to why it needs one.
This is where Susan's going to do her arts and crafts. And right now, because of the fact that this has to be constructed separately, and she'd have to go downstairs.
No, there's a bath just on down the hall here.
That's
It's not
the
existing.
future. That's the future plan. And I apologize
I
if that
see.
confuses it.
I see what you're saying. So this will be built now, the bonus room will be built now.
Right.
as an arts and
Right.
crafts.
And that conforms completely to, you know, to the FEMA maps and so forth, because the room is on the second floor. And we're not trying to, you know, I appreciate the comments, the questions, we're not trying to get around anything. It's simply because this is going to be a two-story now, and there won't be, you know, it's an attic in the second story of the house now. So the bathroom is quite remote from the use of that room.
Right. Well, I'm just trying to, how could it be shown so that this,
You'd have to do something with the
upon
existing.
construction of the rest of it, this does not become a fifth bedroom, I guess is the,
You'd have to condition that. You might want to think about just letting them do a powder room instead of a full bathroom.
yeah. Okay,
Some sort of wash area.
yeah. So, yeah, I'll let you make that comment. Okay, so I think those were my immediate questions, so let's see what TJ has.
To alleviate our concerns about that bathroom on the top addition there, would you be amenable to maybe just a wash area or like an open sink area instead of
Or just a toilet?
what appears to be an entire bathroom?
Half bath.
Well, I say, I mean, the toilet really is the water closet's the important feature, and we need to have a sink by code, so that would be the minimum. Perhaps you'd allow us to, even if we just rough plumb for the future, this will never be more than a 4-bedroom home. In the addition, when we do that work, it's clearly, it's a 4-bedroom home. And if you want to condition it now to make it a 4-bedroom so that this can't be used as a bedroom now, we'd be fine with that. You know, at the end of the day, we're not looking to go to 5 bedrooms. And I get it, it looks like that's what we're gonna have. But the final plan shows 1 bedroom on the first floor, 2 in the main house on the second floor, and then this room here. It walks and talks like a bedroom. I'm not gonna pretend it's not. I mean, that's the rules I play under. If it walks and talks like a duck, it's a duck. So,
And I absolutely believe your testimony regarding the room and the bath and all that, but I think our concern is down the line when the property is sold.
sure.
There's the possibility it could become a 5th bedroom.
And again, we're not looking for the 5th, so if you want to condition it as a 4-bedroom home, that's fine.
It would have to be. And the certificate of occupancy should say 4-bedroom only.
And that gets registered in the Land Court or Registry of Deeds?
The
If
decision-
anybody checks.
The decision does, yes.
Decision.
I have a question on how many years, because the permit expires, what, 3 years? So that if they're doing this in phasing, are they gonna have to come back, or?
When you look at your special permit decisions,
Mhm.
one of the last decisions is that the permit is good for 3 years unless there's a substantial start of the permit prior to expiration of said permit.
So then how long does it go
Building
for?
a portion of it would constitute a substantial
Substantial.
start.
Yes, it would.
And
And
it's
is there any statute of limitation?
And it's the building commissioner's determination. A building permit is good for a year. The phasing will be
Okay.
year after year after year.
Thank you.
Anyway, I mean, we could offer a deed restriction if that helps, or if you want to condition it, you know, I'm comfortable with what the board would be comfortable with, to make sure that this doesn't change down the road.
I'd like the
Right.
deed restriction.
We usually do a deed restriction.
Okay.
Okay,
We're okay with that, because, I mean, this is the intention of, and again, we're just putting all our cards on the table tonight, just so.
We haven't got that far into the discussion, sorry.
I have no further questions.
okay, so I think the board's asked us questions. There's not that many folks still out there. Does anybody still out there want to make a comment? All right.
Motion to close the hearing?
Yes. Jerry moves to close. Seconded by Ed, all in favor? Aye. Okay, hearing is closed. Motion to approve.
Do we have discussion?
Do you want a quick discussion?
Well, is there further discussion to have? Why don't we make the discussion part of the motion?
Whatever you want to do. Just be-
You want to have discussion?
Well, no, the only thing I'm concerned with is I think the deed restriction is reasonable. I can't see making them take out the bathroom and things like that. People supposed to abide by the law and things like that.
The discussion was, I believe, and they were possibly amenable to it, was a powder room.
A half
She
bath.
needs a toilet and a sink. So, but the board usually does, if you want to continue your discussion, I won't interrupt again. The board usually does a deed restriction when it appears there could be the possibility of more than 4 bedrooms.
And I like that, because the plan shows a bathtub. Yeah, and that
But we're
would,
talking about getting rid of that, yeah, as a condition.
okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. But even so, I think it's still worthwhile. So go ahead, TJ, you're gonna make the motion?
Sure.
Well, I just have a quick question. Do you need 2 means of egress for that space over there?
He explained why they're doing it.
No, I know, I understand that. I mean, to use it, do you need 2 means of egress? Because there
If it's
won't
a
be one.
bedroom, possibly on the second floor, that's a building code determination.
So if they have
They're
it-
proposing it that way.
But
So
in the
they-
near
so-
term, there won't, that's the
That's what I'm
only.
saying, there wouldn't be a
That's gonna be
second
the
means
only.
anyway, so if there's only one, then you wouldn't
No,
consider it
no.
a bedroom?
They're showing it so she can access it from the house after the house is built.
Right.
Right now, she's gonna access it from the front, because the garage is gonna be built first.
Right.
I believe it,
And,
I'm sorry.
is that correct? The hearing's closed if you want to.
I believe that was the
reopen and let Mike
testimony.
speak.
That was the testimony that, so, right now, when they build this garage addition, there'll only be a single means in and out, and that's through that exterior stair. Obviously, once they build the second floor, then there'll be 2 means.
Right.
In that, we are proposing to do as part of the first plan, is to build a 2-story, that whole element. So that's why we're looking for the second means of egress, because I believe the commissioner will ask us to have a second means of egress out of that. Just like any bedroom, you have the door going into the bedroom, and then you're gonna have a window.
Yeah.
that you
But
can
it's
get
not
out.
a bedroom.
Okay, let's get
It's a
on with
means
the,
of egress.
let's get on
We're
with
not
the,
designing the house
let's
for
get
it.
on with the motion here. TJ is making the motion.
Make a move to approve
I'll
the
second.
project.
Okay, and let's have some findings.
All right, 240, 216. Lot coverage will increase to, is it 24.87%?
Yep.
Yes.
So they're just under there.
Mm-hmm.
4 bedrooms proposed, it's on town sewer, I believe testimony had it. There's a front nonconformity, it's 7.6 feet currently, I think it will improve to 11, if I read that correctly.
Yes.
I think it's worth noting it's a phase project, as the applicant stated. They are amenable to that powder room above the garage. Not exactly
I'm
sure
sorry,
how
what
you...
was that one?
They're amenable to removing the bath,
Removing the
Yeah,
bath.
I'd rather
so
have
it's
it
a
if that's what
powder
we're
room.
saying.
I don't know how exactly you want to...
converting,
You're asking them to remove the whole bathroom, or can they have a
no,
powder
converting the
Powder
full
room.
bath to a
to a
half.
powder
Powder
room?
room.
Thank you.
That means no bathtub
Correct,
or shower.
correct.
Is that forever,
I think so.
if I may ask?
Oh.
When,
You could come back at a future date
To modify?
to modify. You can always do that. When you have a clear idea what it is you're doing.
I mean, I know what you're saying, but I don't think it's needed, but if the other board members want it, doesn't
I'd
matter.
like there to be some teeth, some control.
You have a deed restriction. You can bring a plumber in afterwards, too.
TJ's motion.
Well, I just mentioned that
It's
condition.
TJ's motion, Jerry. Let him finish making the motion,
Okay.
please.
I don't know if I have any other findings. Does anyone else have any other findings?
Do you have
Do
some
we say fair
conditions?
play?
I do have conditions.
All right, let's
Oh.
listen to your conditions.
Uh,
Jerry, then you may decide to vote for or
No,
against.
I'm sorry,
okay?
I got ahead of myself.
Per plan, but I guess modified with the half bath as we discussed. 4-bed max, but I think that's being a little redundant. Jerry, do you want that deed of restriction?
Well, I think the deed restriction is mandatory. I don't think the powder room thing gets us anything.
Okay, is your deed restriction to deed restrict it to 4 bedrooms, or is your deed restriction to restrict the use of that room to anything other than a bedroom?
I could live with that.
Because then you're
use of
taking
the
away their
room.
right to relocate a bedroom. So how do you want this
Well,
handled?
if.
Because you've talked about it
if
two
we're
different ways.
If we're taking a bath, if we're taking the tub away, then, I let them come back. I would say restrict that it can never be used for bedroom unless they come back. and let them keep the tub.
All right, see, I think you'd be better just restricting it to 4 bedrooms.
It already is restricted to a 4-bedroom based on sewer.
It's the bonus
so.
room we're discussing, correct? Well, the other board members.
If you,
Here's
if-
my point. From a purely enforcement point of view, they need a building permit to modify that bathroom if they can take the tub out. That'll get them there.
I'm sorry, they need what?
Right, if they make a significant, if we have them remove the tub to modify the,
Plan.
to create that as a bedroom, they'll need a building permit.
Yes. If we restrict it.
Why?
Won't they? If they want to then add a tub and bring in.
It's a plumbing
Make
permit.
modifications to the
plumbing.
size of the,
Yeah, they could, yes.
It's a plumbing permit, you don't
Yeah,
need a
they
bathroom
do
for
it,
a
yeah.
bed.
my point is,
So
if-
what's,
anyway, I just think if.
deed restriction to 4 bedrooms, that's it.
Yes,
Thank you.
in my opinion.
Keep it simple.
What about the powder room now?
TJ's motion includes the powder room, I believe.
Does.
That's what he said, Jess. Because he asked for a modification of the plan to show that.
Okay.
Right. And I appreciate the applicant coming forward with their plans and putting it all out on the table, and I believe them 100% what they intend to do with the property. I'm just worried down the line, someone could make an illegal 5th bed there, and at least have something on record restricting that.
That follows the deed.
Right.
Okay. Is that all your conditions?
I think it is.
Okay, are we ready to vote? And we did get a second, that was Ed. All in
No.
favor?
No, TJ and Jerry.
Oh, TJ and Joe, okay. All right, sorry about that. All in favor?
I
And aye.
One opposed.
Okay. Can you oppose the motion you second? I guess you can.
I don't like the conditions.
That's rare.
It still passes.
Yeah, no, it still passes.
For your indulgence.
Thank you for your indulgence.
You're doing 4-1, and you have to note that Jerry.
All right. That brings us to the minutes.
Which I do not have prepared for the board. She
Okay,
did
so
send
then
them
that's
to
a-
me, but I did not.
That's a very easy item on the agenda then. We'll just
do
pass
that.
over that.
My apologies, but
And then the second item in the open meeting here is board review and discussion of the Megantic Crossing 40B attorney opinion.
is that okay?
Hmm?
Is it okay if I excuse myself?
No, you should stay.
Wow.
So, I guess as everyone recalls, there's a question about when the permit expired for this. Yep, are you here to represent?
So let the record show that we discussed it at an open meeting. This is an open meeting. Frank Duffy submitted his opinion. Michael Galasso asked to submit an opinion that was supposed to be here last Thursday, so the board had a week to review it. It came in this afternoon. So we have his opinion, which I passed out to all of the board members. Did you receive it?
Yes.
So you have read
You passed
it?
it out
Yes.
Email,
via,
Email.
oh, I did not receive it.
the minute I got it, because it
Did not
came
receive
email and hand delivered.
And I'd like to offer, I don't like to offer excuses, but an explanation as to why this didn't come in sooner. My wife and I welcomed a new baby last week, on Thursday of last week, which was a little bit sooner than we were expecting. And it has thrown me for a little bit of a loop.
But his first girl.
It is our first girl.
Ah,
So,
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I had intended to get this in last Thursday, and life intervened. And I got it in as soon as I could, and I apologize for the delay. So, you know, I understand that we did not have it in a week in advance, as this board prefers, but wanted to offer, again, not an excuse, but an explanation.
And cigars?
Scotch.
Now you're
okay.
talking.
How about Jameson?
I like that tradition.
All meetings should end that way. So if you'll indulge me and just allow me to recap what I set forth in the letter, I did go over some of the procedural history of this project, which I know this board is very familiar with, and it's a long and lengthy history. But I think the most salient facts are that in 2016, October 2016, there was a modification of the comprehensive permit. That modification included a condition, a relatively routine condition, which states that this permit shall lapse 3 years from the date on which this decision is filed in the town clerk's office, except for good cause as determined by the Board of Appeals. There had been a previously set expiration date, which was beyond that, not beyond the 3 years, but beyond the date of the decision. And that previously set extension date had been then extended. I understand Attorney Duffy's position is that the condition 12 appears to have been added by mistake, and this is a quote. He said, "Condition 12 appears to have been added by mistake. It is not the original grant of a permit where condition 12 would be appropriate. It is a modification of a previously granted permit where it is not." I don't dispute his position, but I think the fact of the matter is the decision did issue with that condition. And it's true that a board can amend a decision to correct an error in that decision. However, case law has held that this ability is restrained in instances where no one's relying on the original decision and is going to be prejudiced by that correction. In this case, the applicant, McGantic Crossing LLC, has in fact relied on that because they've been still working on obtaining their financing. They've completed their applications. And that was being those applications were predicated in many ways on the extension being through November 4th, 2019, which is 3 years from the date that that decision was filed with the town clerk's office. What I haven't been able to find is any case law where there's conflicting expiration dates. In this case, we have expiration date set forward by administrative approval, and we have an expiration date set forward by a modification to the existing decision. There is no case law that I've been able to locate relative to a situation of this nature. But what I would set forth is that certain decisions, specifically the grant of a variance, explicitly require that a request for an extension be done within the lifetime of that decision. Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 10 specifically states that an extension can only, can only happen upon an extension can only happen. I'm sorry, it says, upon the expiration of the original one-year period, such rights may be reestablished only after notice and a new hearing pursuant to the provisions of this section. That language doesn't exist in Section 9 of Chapter 40A, which is regulating special permits, nor does it exist in Chapter 40B, or the relevant section of Chapter 40B, which is Section 21, or the Massachusetts regulations, 760 CMR 56, regarding comprehensive permits. So what I had said in my letter was, given the conflicting expiration dates, given the applicant's reliance on that later date, given the lack of relevant case law, and the fact that there was a non-prohibition of such an extension, the applicant's requesting an administrative approval for an extension from what the board's position was, which was April 15th, 2018, to November 4th, 2019, which is when that modification would have expired. My hope is that this request would give us enough time to complete the financing and begin the construction without the necessity of coming back and troubling this board again for this matter, but also would then jive, that's a technical legal term, jive the modification date with the board's date and eliminate that conflicting issue.
Okay. I know that we feel strongly about this, but let's see how.
I'm not the board.
Yeah, you're not the board. Let's see how Robert feels.
I tend to concur with town council on this one. You know, there was an error in the decision, I understand, but it wasn't the original vote. And when you review the email trail back and forth, it seemed that the applicant applying for his extensions was always also under the impression that it had expired. And then when they discovered the date change, it just allowed something to try to apply for.
So I think that's the key piece, is whether they were aware.
Because there were two extensions applied for, which, why would you apply for them? You wouldn't need it. And then on this, if we did decide to extend, in all likelihood, regarding, financing dates and lengthening, we may be asked to extend again.
Well, we could, I suppose, say this is our final extension.
I had a question.
Well, Jerry, we'll get to you.
Okay,
Let's go
just
down
you
the
were
board.
talking, I figured I could chime in.
I agree that the date that was set, 4/15, we all agreed upon. And the fact that an error was made, everybody knew what our intent was. I think that's what Frank Duffy said, and I think we got to go along with him. It's my feeling.
Okay. DJ, as
No.
an attorney?
As the vice chairman of the zoning board of appeals,
Yes.
and not as an attorney, I think we should stand by the original date. We relied upon it, and the applicant's prior actions, he relied upon the original date as well. And I appreciate Frank weighing in on this matter, and the applicant's attorney as well.
Jerry?
A question for the attorney. Why would this not be considered a Scrivener's error?
Well, I don't think that a condition and a decision is a Scrivener's error. I think if you're writing a deed and you write 58 feet instead of 68 feet, that's a Scrivener's
I
error.
thought a Scrivener's error is just a mistake.
There's mistakes and there's mistakes.
Okay, no, okay, so this is, in your view, not a Scrivener's error.
I wouldn't view this as a Scrivener's error. I mean, it's a fairly substantial provision in a decision. And if it has been relied on, which, our position is that it has, unfortunately, I don't think that, and I say this respectfully, I don't think the board can hand wave away a mistake in a decision. Whether or not it was issued by mistake, it was still issued, and it is a decision that went through the appropriate appeal period and was recorded at the filed with the town clerk and recorded at the registry of deeds. For better or worse, words matter, and I think that the decision, having gone through the appropriate channels, having been recorded and having been relied on, I think it does bear weight that I'm afraid this board might not be giving its due course as opposed to Attorney Duffy's position.
My second issue is that, I just weigh in, I have a tendency to think that this is for the public good, and I appreciate Frank's opinion on this, but I don't see that we're creating massive precedent by allowing an extension, given that this is a 40B and the applicant made concessions. Not that we want to ignore our town council advice, but this board in the past has chose not to follow town council advice. So it's within our prerogative to not follow it. That's it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I also think it's worth considering the fact that due to the conflicting dates, I do believe that this board would be able to issue an extension without setting precedent and eliminating that conflict. I think that there is, pardon the colloquialism, but enough to hang your hat on with the conflicting dates that an extension can well be granted. That would, one, continue to serve the public good and allow this project to move forward in a more expedited manner than having to essentially restart with a new application, which would set this back substantially. And given the conflict in the dates and given the fact that there is no prohibition, as I've set forth, regarding the extension, I think that there's really strong grounds for this board to issue an extension that doesn't necessarily go against Attorney Duffy's position. And
Well, haven't we sort of already done that? I mean, what the question is whether we're going to uphold it.
I'd like to say something.
Yeah, I was going to ask you for something.
I disagree with what you're stating, that he relied upon that date. He did not rely upon that date. Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked for, and Michael's been very thorough through this whole process. He's always asked for extensions when he needed them. So he only relied on that date when he reviewed it, when he found out through conversation with me that it was expired. That's what I'm saying is the technicality. It's not, and it's a boilerplate, which is still my error. I own up to that, I have no issues. I just take offense that you say he relied upon that date, because he did not. He asked for, and I have no issues with what the
So
board
that was
wanted to
gonna be
do, but I
my
want the
question.
record to be right.
So,
Suri, that was going to be my question to you, is there, and, you know, we see a lot of cases, and I don't keep every, you live it day to day, I don't keep every email and course, letter and so forth in my head, and the dates and so forth. But there was clear correspondence prior to the expiration in which it would have appeared Mr. Galasso was anticipating an earlier expiration and was asking for extensions.
Correct.
That's
And
in the
as a matter of
record.
fact, a month after the decision in question, he requested an extension because that was coming. What he was, the decision that he is relying upon, condition 12, was not
And that
for
was
an
an extension
extension.
to what date?
It was not for an
That
extension.
was,
Everything's right there in the
yeah,
file.
yeah.
So if I can speak
But
to that.
the point is, I'm sorry,
Oh,
Kevin.
no, go
Well,
ahead.
I'm just trying to establish, because I think it makes a difference whether there was, you know, a body of evidence that, you know, your client was aware of,
So I'd be happy to speak to that, Mr. Foreman.
yeah.
Which is that, yes, there were extensions requested after the modification. However, to Cerie's point, he had been diligent about requesting extensions well in advance, and I think upon the realization that this modification extended it to 2019, it wasn't done anymore. At that point, I mean, if we look at the history, we look at the letters that were submitted, they typically came in 1-2 months ahead of the potential expiration date. That didn't happen in this case, I think because of the fact he was in fact relying on that.
No, he called the day after it expired and asked me when his permit was up. And then, a couple of days after that is when he determined, he called me and asked me, well, I was reviewing the permit and I saw this condition 12. And I told him at that point, it was my mistake. It wasn't supposed to be in there. That should have been changed because that comprehensive permit I use as a template. It doesn't matter. All I'm saying is, I know for a fact, based on conversations with Mr. Galasso, which has maybe some bearing, maybe not, he did not rely on condition 12. Otherwise, he wouldn't have requested 2 extensions after that permit was granted. And he wouldn't have called me on April 16th to ask me when his permit expired. And I had told him it expired, and he says, oh, I thought it had been Friday or Saturday, and I still had another day. That was our phone conversation, which I try to get everything in black and white, and I should have. Most of his emails are in there, but anyway, he did not rely on that date.
Mr. Chairman, could I respond just a second?
Sure.
So this came up as part of our application to DHCD for our financing. It's very important to DHCD that we have a permit. So when I filed the application with DHCD, in that application, I pulled out the most recent permit, and that's when we discovered that it had that date of, you know, it was good,
And when
condition
was
12. That was condition 12.
No, but when-
That was on April 15th.
16th
And that's why,
or
or
17th.
16th. And that's why I sent her an email or called and requested a clarification, because I pulled that permit, and I don't think, truthfully, that either one of us might have known that date was on there. But when I pulled the most recent permit that I had in my file to send up to DHCD, that's when I noticed there was a conflict. And that's why I called to clarify it. Because it's so important to DHCD that we have a permit that's been approved. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't sending something up to the state that wasn't accurate. So I called and asked, what date do you have? And then discovered that we had 2 conflicting permits. That's how this came about.
May I see the file, please?
Yeah.
And I think, you know,
So if I can just say, so I think there's some ambiguity, at least in my mind, about the issue of the extension or not. But then what concerns me is, so given that ambiguity, I could see how the board might say, okay, we consider the later date valid. What concerns me is if we don't consider the latter date valid, then the applicant has to start over on the 40B process, is that correct?
Correct.
We have an approved project, so this is for the board's consumption. We have an approved project. Yeah, so this was April 17th.
From DHCD. He called me April 16th.
Have approved, so this says, "Dear Mr. Galasso, from DHCD on April 17th, on behalf of Jennifer Maddox and Crystal Cornegay, we are happy to inform you the Department of Mass Housing have approved the pre-application you submitted in March for Megansett Crossing Apartments. Please note that the full one-stop applications for all CSHI projects, community house, CHI, are due no,
Subsidized housing.
community subsidized housing inventory projects are due no later than the close of business Wednesday, May 16th, 2018. Instructions on how to submit full applications are included in the notice of funding availability, and then if you have any questions, call." Okay, so, but this is an application for funding, correct?
Right.
Right, so you're saying that that letter came after the expiration date?
Yes. He submitted it to me as proof, because I had
But-
asked him
but
when we were
it-
discussing.
That's when that arrived, but he had already approached them in March.
And I think it's worth pointing out that's a pre-application, not the complete application.
But anyway, where I was going with this is, do we really want to make the applicant, we've gotten, a 10-unit project approved, do we want to start over again?
What is our ability to have no further extension? We know that something could come up. He's hoping to get additional financing. Do we just, if we did agree to an extension, then we'd have to agree to deny any other extension?
It's not good to deny a request for an extension on a comprehensive permit.
But how many
If he had
extensions are
asked
reasonable?
April 15th for an expiration, that would have been dated that day and brought to the board as soon as possible. And I'm not saying anything about that. He didn't even ask for an extension once he found
But
out
it's,
Kevin Flower did.
mistakes are made. I mean, people make
Yes.
mistakes. But there's a
But
little,
you shouldn't deny an
a little
extension
shred of ambiguity here.
request.
Sari,
Yes.
due to that condition being included. But what purpose is served by making him start over? That's what I'm trying to get straight in my head, because given that shred of ambiguity, it seems that we could rule in his favor, and then, okay, we've got a project that might get funded and might actually get built.
I don't have issues with anything. It's a technicality, and he didn't ask for an extension. And he could have, right then that day. Kevin Clower, I believe in your letter, asked for an extension. The board can vote that.
But he may have been under the
Board can vote
mishap-
that date for the 19th. I'm not saying anything. I'm just
So,
presenting
so
the
to
case.
Ken's point and to Sri's point, we have asked for an extension, and we, there is the conflict in the dates, and I think the board can grant an extension if they choose to, which allows this project to keep moving forward, and the alternative is that we have to start over,
Right.
which I don't think there's any benefit to that.
No benefit, and we might get something back that we like less.
Been going on
Well-
for 10 years almost.
And I just,
Not
it's
just him,
true.
but I mean the previous.
I don't, I said spinning wheels and using resources that don't need to be used.
And the project's improved over the 10 years? I know, we got some,
Well,
It's been approved.
no.
That's
but-
all that matters.
No, I think we got some benefit out of it. We asked for
well,
concessions.
I think yes, I think that what we saw was better than what had originally been proposed, and then, but at higher density, and then we got a concession on the density, so.
And I think that an extension can be granted without flying in the face of Attorney Duffy's position.
So that's what I'm thinking. I don't know what the rest.
Could he explain why it's not flying in the face of Attorney Duffy's.
Sure.
No, does it matter? Can you
Yes, it
guys
matters to me.
just
I'm asking for it.
That's fair, that's fair.
vote the
So,
extension?
because I think that because of the ambiguity that Ken's referenced, and because of the conflict of referenced, I think that there is a reasonable case to be made that the present extension date is later than what the board had thought, and I think there is a reasonable case to be made that the previous extension date might have been April 15th. I think that given that ambiguity, this board is able to issue an extension within their rights to do so, and that would eliminate this problem.
Or the board should vote to accept condition 12, so it's not expired, and an extension would only be necessary if he can't get a building permit by April 19th.
That would be lovely,
Well,
too.
that would be a fine
That would
motion
be
to
the
make.
best thing to do.
I would love it. I would love if that
I think
happened.
that would be a reasonable,
I will go get scotch if we do that.
Not
I'm
with
kidding.
the
I'm
base.
kidding.
I like
so
that
Cerise
compromise.
proposed a way of making this right. We just need someone to make the motion.
I'll make a motion to whatever Sri just said.
No, no, you can't, no.
Well, I'm just trying to remember, that we extend the expiration date.
No, don't
No.
extend it, just
To
accept
accept
condition
condition
12 as the expiration date
We
in
accept-
special permit 17-16M,
Did you get that, Ed?
right? Kevin?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to accept condition 12,
12.
which stipulates that the expiration date is,
April 15th, 2019, I believe.
No, it's November 4th,
Right.
2019.
That's right,
2019.
November
2019 is
Yeah,
the key
November.
date.
November 4th.
okay, is there a second to that?
Seconded.
Is there any further discussion on that motion?
It's been enough.
Hearing no further discussion, I'll call the vote.
Been enough.
All in favor?
Aye.
And aye.
Thank you
Okay.
very much. We appreciate your time.
Are you going to do it? Okay, Ken.
Oh, Mo, thank you.
The reason for-
Okay, so that takes care of that item. Board updates?
Sri's retirement? How we
We all
proceed?
we all saw that in
Well,
the
no, how,
enterprise.
does the board want to write a letter on how soon we recommend the advertisement take place, or a succession plan?
I think a board letter talking about the importance of Cerie's position and what a fantastic job she's done and
Yes.
how we all rely on her, and that they better find someone as good.
Well, I think
would
also
be-
our attorney may not
would
have
be
the ability
very
to, draft decisions. We don't want, what's the term, when we don't act fast enough? It's an automatic approval.
Yes, constructive grants. We don't want constructive grants.
The other thing, in the future, could we have
All right.
Bob give us an update on the accessory apartment?
He can give you a brief one now, it's on the agenda.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
He told me he couldn't, so.
Board updates.
didn't think it was on the
That's why I
agenda.
put board updates on there.
So we just had our last meeting, this Wednesday. TJ actually came to part of the meeting. They have,
We'll observe.
they proposed a minimum lot size of 7,500 square feet. It seems like there's a consensus on that.
But that's just for the detached, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And then the, Cerise submitted a comment letter on some issues that she's found within the bylaw that she thinks should be addressed. They are considering on footprint, so if you're dealing with an accessory structure that's a single level, a ranch, they would like to come up with a footprint that is smaller than the footprint of the main structure. So what they're trying to work out is an exact percentage, a max percentage.
You're talking about coming up with what is the
Floor
current area,
Yeah, so if you.
out of which 40% is
Well,
allowed to be.
It's a little different. So if you're dealing with a ranch versus a two-story, so you could get a two-story home that has a smaller footprint, still has the 800 square feet, but still look smaller than, like it's a cape, it would look smaller. If you're dealing with a cape, now you're doing a ranch or one-level unit, because it's gonna have a longer foundation for that same 800 square feet, it could appear larger than the existing home.
I guess the
would be
issue
large.
I have is, if you're making an affordable, an accessory apartment, why can't you get an architectural plan that gives you the actual square footage of your living space? And let's define how it's, so I heard about one case where, for the proposed, for the main structure, they didn't count the stairwells, and they got, therefore,
So
or
what
they
the-
counted, I'm sorry, I've got that backwards. They counted the stairwells, but they got a larger area. And then when in the accessory apartment, which had a stairway in it, they didn't count that one, which made that smaller.
So
they end up with a bigger apartment relative to, and, we need a set of criteria.
So
What are the rules
so the
for how you
current-
do
so-
it?
So the current consensus on the 40%, figuring out the square footage, and it was also suggested by the building commissioner, is that they use the outside walls as the actual measurement. If it's 1 story or 2, whatever it is, they
Well,
use
if
the
it's
outside
2,
wall.
what do you do for 2? Do you have
Same thing,
Times
outside
2,
walls,
he said.
times 2.
times
If
2?
the second floor is
Times
smaller.
2 or times 1.5? I
He
mean,
said
what if
times
it's,
2.
Times 2.
see, I think that gives you an awfully large, there's a lot of capes.
Well, you
One-
gotta
one
think
and a half
about it.
story.
If you have a 800 square foot on the outside, you're only gonna get so much living space on the inside. It's not gonna be 800 square feet, which is
Right.
what the bylaw allows. So they've gotta somehow come to an agreement of what they're gonna use. Before, it's always been living space.
But there's a difference between a 2-story and a 1.5
You're
story.
gonna penalize anybody that has an energy efficient house and has 6-inch studs or 6-inch walls versus 2x4s.
I like Ken's idea that they're gonna have to hire a professional and to come up with a scale drawing. It's not gonna
The
add
thing
any
is,
expense.
that leaves it
It
at
adds some.
somebody's discretion of what's what.
The building
They've gotta
department wants a
define what living
very
space
easy
is.
way to define how they're doing the measurements.
That's the outside corners of the.
And what they're deciding is outside walls, outside corners.
Well, the only thing I would argue is to make a distinction between 2-story, 1.5 story, and 1 story, because,
I think that's what he just said. They made a determination that if it's a cape, you're gonna have a ranch accessory structure.
Well, no,
With a
so
smaller
the issue on the
footprint.
accessory structure is they're looking at, if you had a cape and now you're doing an accessory structure that's a ranch, let's say it's 800 square feet.
It can't.
Because it's gonna be longer, because it's gonna be a longer foundation. If you're looking at the property, it can appear that that accessory structure is larger than the footprint of the first home. So they would like a percentage cap if it's a single story. And if you're dealing with a cape and now doing a single story accessory, they would like a cap of what the percentage would be.
Why can't it just be accessory to the primary and design it to where it is and not look like a huge? And that's what, you're dealing with 40% of the single-family dwelling.
Right.
So if the accessory is 40% or less, what is the big deal?
Well, but what's
So now you're-
40%? That's what they're trying to figure out.
Stairwells, I would hope
But
not.
the thing is, they're making a determination on, okay, if it's a 2-story that's got just for numbers, a 200 by 100. And that's a 2-story and it's living space that you have to base your 40% on. So if they go, say it's 3,000 square feet, because it's 2-story.
Yeah.
They go to do a ranch. It may be the same size foundation, but less to get to that 40%. So what they're doing is it becomes, I guess you'd have to build a smaller foundation at 1.5 stories,
So
which
you-
is cost
I
prohibitive
see
for
what
some
you're saying.
people.
You're saying make it 40% of the footprint.
40% of the living space. The bylaw before was always 30% of the
Right,
living space.
Right. It was.
Or gross floor area, one of the two, I can't remember now, it's been so long. That's what it was.
Can we define living?
I go back to, why did you change the bylaw? Why didn't you just remove the affordability
Well,
component,
that
take out the
ship sailed.
monitoring, and, increase it to 800 square feet and 30% to
anybody
40%. Why are we
recommended-
redesigning the whole thing and working so hard at something that worked in the past?
All I can say is that we are. I mean, I completely agree with you. We tried to make that case at town meeting, and they voted
Oh, yeah, and change the minimum lot size from 15,000, of which it was,
to nothing.
to
And now at least
7,000.
we're going to 7,500.
What is the difficulty of adding a definition of living space?
I think-
Inside walls, exclude stairwells, you know.
yeah.
I think that's.
We asked Bob and Bob to do that.
And that was the back and forth discussion over and over again. Living space versus gross floor area. And
Is it
the
too difficult?
building
to
department has suggested that the easiest way to do this for an applicant,
It's an easy way, but it may not be the right.
I understand, so they're
So I
going by
think what it comes
streamlining.
down to is, if you're in the real estate business, this, you look at the assessors and you get the number,
Right.
just like that.
Which may not be right.
It may not
Correct.
be right, but it's a standard way of doing it.
That's correct.
And so as long as it's consistent and standard, then why isn't that sufficient?
Because you can't use the assessor's records, they're for taxation purposes only, and
But
they're not
it's such a
accurate.
small area, a staircase in or out. I mean, maybe it should be consistent, but who
Staircases-
cares?
If an
staircases
applicant is
have-
doing their own measurements, it's easy for them to measure outside walls. It's
Ah.
much more difficult when they have to figure out exact living space and start deducting and interior walls, and that's what they're getting at. It's easier for an applicant to just measure
And
it
there's
that way.
cost. I think the feeling is that there's cost involved. If you were gonna make the applicants, so I can be the devil's advocate on either side. If you were gonna make the applicants go get a professional architect to come in, and if you don't happen to have your architectural plans anymore, and measure all the interior spaces, and then come up with, what is the square footage, the interior square footage.
But they're gonna have to
You
come
gotta
up
do the
with,
engineering for the drawings.
Anyways.
Of the apartment, just have the guy do that while he's at it.
that's good.
So
Plus
take a few
building,
minutes.
Well,
the
except that if
carpenter,
it's if it's a standalone outside, he doesn't have to look at the main house, right?
You mean it's accessory apartment?
Yeah,
Yeah.
We still has to come up how he's
He's gonna be
gonna
on the
modify
property
it.
and-
it's gonna be on the property.
yeah.
Okay.
I agree with you, Ed. I don't see why it can't be done properly, but it would add some burden to the person asking for the accessory apartment. And of course, this goal of the planning board has been to get rid of as many burdens as possible, so that it's very easy to do.
And this will come down.
But it's making it, it is putting a bigger burden on the applicants. This bylaw and what they're proposing is putting a bigger burden
Yeah, I wouldn't call it
on the
a
applicant.
burden to get a little bit more calculations.
Well, it's not only that, it's other things as well,
Okay.
Jerry.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean,
There is,
because-
I mean, there
And the
is, there is
steps
there
and
is
the whole
multiple steps.
bit.
I do, personal opinion, I do think that we need a joint meeting with planning, and I
Yeah.
do
Which
think.
they've agreed to.
Oh,
And
they
I-
have
and I-
agreed to it,
And I
that's
do
good.
think that either town management or selectmen need to be
Selectmen.
at
I
the meeting.
suggested liaisons.
I think that's a very
That's
good
a
idea.
good
Robert.
idea.
You need to have
Very
someone
good
else
idea
at the
to have-
meeting.
To have the
Could I
third
bring-
party there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Could I
At
bring
the
up-
meeting that we had, I suggested a liaison from each board.
Yeah.
Or a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen so that they understand
All three
what's
boards.
going on, but
I think it's
I think
important,
the
Jerry, at this point, to
liaisons-
have some kind of a third party, selectman or town
Well,
manager
yeah,
there,
but not
because
all
there
three
is
or
gonna
four
be
boards.
complete opposing ideas.
There's gonna be
and-
some
Yeah.
things that we cannot agree on.
Yeah.
exactly.
But the liaison seems to cut it down so we don't have three boards here in session,
Yeah.
a joint meeting, you know.
Right.
That's,
Well, so I met with Jim Fox, earlier in the week, but to talk
But-
more generally about, but it bears on the accessory apartment thing, but more generally about, let's be respectful of each other's mission and
Thank
so
you.
forth. And I think we came away agreeing that we would ask our boards to please be a little more.
Professional.
No,
Well
professional
taken.
about how we refer to each other.
It was a good meeting.
could I ask another thing?
But it doesn't mean we came away agreeing on everything,
No,
because Jim's
and they
has
know.
strong opinions.
Yeah, they know.
What is the latest on requiring enhanced nitrogen? Just no more flow than 4 bedrooms? Or is
If
that-
they're not adding additional bedrooms at this point.
There's no denied if they're
There's
not
no-
adding additional.
Well, if they're
bedrooms.
not, oh, that's, okay, because I've had some conflicting opinions of people not willing to agree that has reached consensus.
So there is one more meeting before the joint meeting, which would be July something, I can't remember.
So July 11th
Yeah.
is the next one.
But one major change was now we do have, at least for the detached accessory apartments, a minimum lot size. And
They're
As of
discussing
the
it.
last meeting. Now, the only reason I say that is because when we end these meetings and we have these consensuses and everything's set, when we come to the next meeting,
Things
Are
have
there no
changed.
minutes distributed?
It's an ad hoc committee type of thing.
Well, it's
so
an open meeting.
It's an ad hoc committee.
Okay, the other thing is, I had gone to the assistant town manager, and he said, really, anybody could attend, but if you attend, only the designated representative could speak.
Right.
I understand that there's been 2 representatives from other boards there speaking.
there lately have been multiple people.
Well, just because they're doing it a certain way doesn't mean we should.
No, but it's, you were there.
And just to clarify, my presence at the meeting, I was fortunate enough to be working at a Falmouth District Court on that day, and I got out early, so with the understanding I could sit in and not participate, that's what I did.
As
And I
vice
also-
chairman. Okay,
As
I-
a member of
that
the
you
public,
agree.
sitting in the back, and I did not provide any testimony during that meeting.
No, I didn't, I wasn't referring to you.
No, I'm just, well, I know you weren't, Jerry, but I
But
know
at
that
the rate-
Bob mentioned I was there.
Just real quick, at the rate that these meetings are going and they're extending more and more and more, I don't know if they're gonna have something prepared for November
meeting.
town meeting. I know that that's the goal,
Yeah,
but
lofty
it just
goal.
appears that these are getting stretched out long.
I
And-
think they'll get something prepared for town meeting.
They may try to do smaller changes.
But I thought it was ironic because I think some of the, on the one hand, they're trying to make this a bylaw that allows for easy addition of accessory apartments. On the other hand, when it came to us, I guess, and we made decisions to approve certain projects, they thought we weren't hard enough, so.
There was a general consensus at the meeting that the permitting should be handled by the zoning board, because we deal mainly with residential, planning does commercial. Tom Bott and Rod Palmer said there's no reason why the zoning board can't do site plan review, can't do design review. I'm
Well, that
sure
would
that's
be-
an opinion that will change with the joint meeting, but
I pointed out that, most of the properties are pre-existing non-conforming, so they're gonna go to them, and then they're gonna come to us. Why are you doing that to an applicant?
That's a very good
That's
point.
excellent.
Because 9 times out of 10, they're gonna be pre-existing non-conforming. So
Yeah.
even an accessory apartment that's a by right, if it's added onto, not if it's created within, unless it goes up in height,
Yeah,
would have to come to both boards. That's ridiculous.
yeah, that's a really good
And same
point.
with the detached, so
That's a
they
really
should
good
be
point.
very careful and think about this, who's the special permit granting authority.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't take 243 out of the equation, but they can take, by town meeting vote, 243 and give it to the planning board. Then there goes the ZBA, but I'm
Yeah, but
just
why
saying.
would anybody want 240-3?
I
Oh,
think 240-3 is
240-3.
fun.
Like he said, why would you?
Okay,
wouldn't
anyway,
that.
I think does that do it for tonight? Is
Yes.
that pretty much a
Yep.
good, complete summary?
Yep.
Thank you for
Thank you.
that. And obviously, Kim hasn't checked in yet on procedural rules and future agenda.
I'm
Any
keeping it
future-
on there.
Future agenda.
At your
items?
retirement party, it will be presented.
All right, meeting adjourned.
motion to adjourn.
Second.